really, I'm not explaining it very well, but that really bothers me.
Well, there's
lot.
no real other way to lie. You like some of these lies, like politicians. Like, did you see that conversation that AOC had with that man they brought in for the Biden case, and they were talking about what crimes, and she was like grilling this guy. What crimes did you see Joe Biden? Did he steal anything? Did he steal bread? Like, I forget what she said, and he was trying to explain what they were, RICO crimes, and she was saying RICO is not a crime.
I saw
it's
this.
a category of crime. Like, okay, all right. But it's like,
tell that to the Genovese family.
Not only that, it's so dumb to say that publicly, like, and say it with confidence, and to tell a person.
That's the thing. The marriage of ineptitude and high self-esteem is
it's
really
funny.
the marker of our time. It's like, I have nothing against dumb people at all. My dogs are dumb, and I love my dogs. No, I'm serious. I don't think God cares about your intelligence, right? Only people care. And so it's not a moral category, and stupidity is not I mean, someone with Down syndrome, I really believe are better people than I am.
Yeah.
You know, more likely to go to heaven. So I'm not attacking her for being dumb, but the idea that a dumb person has the White House press secretary is in the same category, who has no idea she's dumb. And she really thinks like she won the prize, like she's the most impressive, like I'm White House press secretary because I'm the best talker in America. It's so crazy. And yet the smartest people I know are very often like sort of, they have humility.
Well, also she's following Kayleigh McEnany. Is that how you say her name?
I don't really know who that is.
She was the last White House press secretary.
I know, and
you don't know who that is? She's the GOAT.
I sort of do.
She's the GOAT. Greatest White House press secretary of all time. She's the best.
I had stopped paying close attention by that point.
She had all the documents. She would kill them. Whenever she would get called out, like whenever there would be a question, she'd say, "That's interesting," and then she'd open because you said this, and your paper said that, and CNN said this, and she would call them out on stuff, and she was just really, really well prepared.
I love that.
Very articulate. She was wonderful
Well, good
at the
for
job.
her. I mean, that's what it should be.
But she was operating under President Trump, so obviously she's demonized.
It's just
I kind of can't believe you don't know who that is.
No, I don't. I know who it is, but it's just funny.
She's the GOAT.
Well, I had stopped watching all briefings by then. I used to go to the briefings as a kid. I literally would go there. I'd be in the briefing room, the former Kennedy swimming pool, and the first thing you know, I was never a White House reporter, but I was a reporter, so I would go to them occasionally, and the first thing you notice is how impressed all the correspondents are to work there. I work at the White House. Work at the White House. Got my hard pass. And then the distance between that little credential they were so proud of and the reality of their lives was like insane. Like they're in this tiny little room. They're being treated with total contempt by the White House staff, who thinks they're just fucking animals. It's like, shut up. They're eating out of vending machines. And this was a different time, right? Mm-hmm. So like when I was working as a journalist in Washington, like we went out to lunch every day at like a good restaurant and charge it to the company. And like with your sources, we're like, we had lunch every single day like civilized people. I don't even think that exists in the world anymore, where you had time for lunch, where you weren't just so under the gun from your corporate masters that you had to like get back to work.
Right.
We ate lunch. And I remember thinking, these people don't eat lunch. They eat like a stale Mounds bar out of a vending machine. Like they bring quarters to work so they can eat. I remember thinking, your life like is... You're not even human. You're just like a little puppet or something. But you're so impressed, and like all your neighbors know. He works at the White House. He's in the White House press corps. And the job like wasn't even really a job. You would just like sit there and ask your question in your little assigned seat, like you're in a high school gym. It was just awful, and I just had no respect for people who did that for a living at all.
Did you ever read Fear and Loathing on the Campaign Trail?
Oh, come on.
Yeah. It's amazing. But that guy gave sort of the best. That's, I think, probably the best window into an outsider in the political process, at least in terms of the campaign trail.
Yeah.
It's the best window to the press, the best window to the relationships that they had with the politicians, at least in the 1970s. It's an amazing book.
I was talking to a campaign reporter. I never do that anymore, but I was this week, actually. And he was telling me it's like totally different. Like when I did it, you were all on I mean, it was bad, actually. It was because it just cultivated groupthink, which was then leveraged by the candidate for better coverage. Like the whole thing was kind of an op, actually. But it was at least fun. Like you were on a charter plane and like you're flying with everybody and you hit 3 or 4 cities a day and like there are cocktails on the plane and, you know, naughty behavior and like, you know, they fed you and they kind of dealt with everything for you. It was fun. It was like a road trip, right? And now it's just like grim. They're all driving alone in their little rental cars to some obscure town in Iowa to sit there with no access whatsoever to the candidate, write up their little reports, and then they get back to their hotel and they're like writing up more for the website. And like, it's just it's such a bad job, actually, covering politics that only the people who couldn't make it in any other business are doing it. It's it's like a reverse meritocracy. It's only the most kind of pathetic power worshipers would ever do a job like that. And,
well, like critics.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Most critics want to be writers.
They're like the worst people. Just as people. Like, well, you've actually been in show business, so you've got a better experience with them, or you have a lot of experience with them. But I've known a lot of them who worked for magazines or newspapers that I worked for. And they're the kind of people who have a lot of cats and all the cats hate them. You know what I mean? They're just like the lowest. They all have some like sort of weird like wandering eye and they're fat and they're like super into porn and totally isolated from everybody. I actually worked for one of them for a while who was a critic for the New York Post, a guy called John Podhartz, and he was one of the weirdest, most unhappy people I've ever met in my life. And he would come into my office occasionally and he would he had a really hairy back and he would rub it against the door frame and like say these kind of obscure, he was stupid, but he didn't know that he was actually